Hi, and welcome back to Animals 2 by 2. And this week we have a new study on snails. At the end of this week, the lessons, objectives, and standards that you'll be able to learn or know is that you'll be able to observe the structures and behavior of land snails in a terrarium. You're going to be able to observe the structures and behavior of water snails in an aquarium. You'll be able to communicate your observations of the two kinds of snails. Compare the similarities and differences of the two kinds of snails. And of course, make observations of the natural world and know that they are descriptors collected using the five senses. And as always, I want you to be able to raise questions about the natural world using appropriate reference material that support your understanding and obtain information. Identify your source. What you'll need for this week. Well, today you should have received some handouts to go along with our snail lessons this week at the club. You should have some pencils or crayons or markers or whatever you like to write with, some paper to take notes and draw pictures if you wish, and of course that book, Animals 2 by 2, we gave out at the beginning of our Animals 2 by 2 lesson study. Some vocabulary that we're going to hit on this week are aquatic snails, land snails, operculum, estivation, hermaphroditic, mollusk, and gastropod. Okay, so this week we're going to be looking at the investigation of land and water snails. We'll be exploring those land snails and the water snails, and in this investigation we're going to look at each type of snail individually and their shells. While watching, I want you to draw or write the important information that you see or learn so that you can reference it throughout the week and that you're able to share that information with those friends and family around you. Okay, so go ahead and get a hold of your book, The Animals 2 by 2. If you need a moment, please feel free to pause the video and find your book. Remember, this is the book that you got a few weeks ago at the club as a handout. And once you receive your book, go ahead and hit play. Up to page 3, learning about animals. Animals come in many sizes. Animals live in many places. You can learn about animals by looking at them closely. And remember, when we're looking at those animals and their structures and behavior, we're using our sense of sight. You're also using your sense of hearing to listen and learn about those animals. Go ahead and turn over until you get to page 8. On page 8, this is where our study will begin. Okay, you should all be there by now. And we're going to look at land and water snails. Where do you find snails? Some snails live in water. Some snails live on land in moist places. Snails have tentacles and a foot. Do you see them? What else do you see? Look at the body very carefully. Okay, turn over to page 10. All snails have a mouth. Snails scrape food onto their mouths. Look very closely at that bottom picture. See if you can see what it's doing. And then look again at that top picture where it is holding on. It's probably eating off of that. To page 11. Now notice in all of these pictures we're seeing two different kinds of snails. They're going to show you a version of a land snail and a version of a water snail. We're going to look individually into those later this week. But I do want you to be thinking about, how are these snails the same and how are they different? Looks like one is underwater And it looks like one is on a stick. Their shells look really different. Their coloring looks different and their shape looks different. Concentrate on these. Now, after looking at those, you're more than welcome to reference back to those pages and read over it and really be thinking about the things that you can observe in those pictures and try to draw a land snail and a sea snail from memory and then look back and see how well you've done. Okay, and then I want you guys to stay tuned tomorrow and the rest of the week where we'll be looking more into land snails and sea snails. Tomorrow you should be watching lesson 2 where we'll investigate in more thorough detail about the land snails. Once again, it's been great working with you. Tune back in tomorrow where we will further investigate these snails.